realization, it's kind of forgotten its original nature. Its original nature is all pervasive, and it's the basis of literally everything that's being observed in the dream world. And, if someone told this to the person who's dreaming, he'd probably say, what is this nonsense? Like, what is this mystical, garbage? Like, I don't even pervade the room I'm in right now. I'm this body. How can I be all pervasive? It's the world he's perceiving seems to be fundamentally what's there, until, in a manner of speaking, he wakes up and realizes it's not what's fundamentally real. His original nature was the basis, the substratum of the dream world. It was the dreamer's mind. It just localized into a body and forgot its original nature. And what we find if we go with this investigation we just went through is that something similar is happening on a macrocosmic level instead of a microcosmic level. There's a macrocosmic mind, which is a trillion, unfathomably times more powerful than our microcosmic mind. It's generated this macrocosmic dream world, which is what we're perceiving. It's the substratum underlying everything we're seeing, which is ultimately what everything is composed of. I call it the substance of all substances. It's localized into a body for the sake of experiences, and as a result of that, it's kind of forgotten its original nature, just like in the dream. And it thinks that now it worries, like, well, what's going to happen, like, after death, or and it has a particular field of vision and so on. Basically, if we go through this investigation of, like, who am I, and we kind of negate everything that's changing, that's seen, and that's not aware, in contrast to myself, which is unchanging, which is aware, and which is the seer, we find out eventually, after, it's like when you're dreaming, you close your eyes, you go within, eventually you wake up, you re-become the dreamer's mind, in a manner of speaking. The same thing happens if you do this, and then you meditate on it. You kind of dissolve everything, and then you reach your irreducible nature. What can be reduced from you anymore? Thoughts can be reduced from you. Desires can be reduced from you. Your mind can be reduced from you. Your perception of the body can be reduced from you. If you keep negating everything and going back, like, who am I essentially? What can I not remove from myself without me ceasing to exist? Then you find out you are totally all-pervasive, just like the dreamer's mind is all-pervasive. It just seems not to be the case because the mind has this ability to veil it from us. That's why when you're dreaming, you don't realize you're all-pervasive and you're the substratum of everything you're perceiving. Well, you are. It's just the mind's veiling it from you, and the same thing is happening here. We are all-pervasive. We are the substratum of literally everything we're perceiving right now. The mind's just kind of veiling it from us. And so this is the realization that all the mystics throughout all cultures speak about. Plotinus, I'm particularly interested in the tradition of the Shrew Syra, the golden chain. This is like the European kind of ancient European mystical tradition. But I mean, if you look at the Upanishads written by the rishis, or the Taoists in China and East Asia, and all of them describe the same thing: that you are the ultimate reality of this universe. But we've forgotten our original nature due to what may be called like avidya, or agnosia, or it kind of just means like self-ignorance, basically. So this covers the topic of existence, I guess. Any questions?
I've got many, but I've been enjoying how you've explained your belief on that, and it goes pretty in depth, and I'm completely interested in how you would explain the next.
Oh, devotion?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, there's many to have that realization of who I am essentially. The mind needs to dissolve. It's like when you have a dream at night, you close your eyes. The mind has to the impressions that have generated the dream world, they have to kind of dissolve back into your dreamer's mind. They have to dissolve back into that for you to finally re-become the dreamer's mind, even though you always were the dreamer's mind. It was just kind of veiled from you. In the same way, we got to kind of dissolve our soul, our pneuma, suksma sharira. There's different terms for it. It's basically just the container of all of our impressions, our desires, our memories, like the subtlemost aspect of our mind. You may call it the unconscious mind, maybe, I don't know. But basically, to do that, we need to make the mind silent, first of all. There's many ways to make the mind silent. These are different paths to what's called self-realization or enlightenment. like the ancient Greeks called anamnesis, which means like self-remembrance, or what in the East they call bodhi, which means like illumination. So there's many paths to this. For example, knowledge-based path mainly focuses on like self-inquiry. Like they'll meditate and they'll ask these questions like, who am I? Why do I exist? They'll do nothing but read and study all day, and of course they'll be detached from the world, and they'll kind of silence their mind in this manner. And then there's the other path, which is the devotion-based approach, which instead will kind of silence the mind by concentrating utterly on a particular deity. So it's focusing on one thought form to the expense of all other thought forms. And this makes the mind super concentrated, like it gives it a superhuman level of concentration, to the point where the mind just becomes totally silenced and it's focused on that one particular thought form and literally nothing else. There's many different deities one may dedicate oneself to. In my case, it's Amara. I mean, I don't really know what to say. I mean, well, anyway, I kind of prefer the devotion-based approach, but I mean, it depends. Like, if your heart's bigger than your head, you prefer the devotion-based approach. If your head's bigger than your heart, I don't know if I got that the wrong way around, then you probably prefer like the knowledge-based approach. I guess focusing on the breath is something they also do in the knowledge-based approach. Like they'll really focus on the breath, like in Buddhism, for example. Like a specific Sanskrit term for that, I can't remember anyway. But yeah, I mean, like there's this practice called puja or theurgy, which is like when you have this image of the deity, and then you have these offerings like incense and food and water and so on, and then you go through these rituals to kind of animate the statue, and then you like what you see with the Muslims doing, standing and bowing and putting the head on the ground while chanting. You do this for like an insane period of time, like 2 hours, and then this makes the mind like super focused to the point where there's like no thoughts whatsoever in the mind. There's no inner monologue. It's just always blank and peaceful. And then in that state, in meditation, then it kind of like your impressions bubble up and dissolve. And then when it's all bubbled up and dissolved, then you're left with like this pure awareness, like this pure consciousness, which is called nous by Plotinus. Sometimes translated as intellect. Intellect in the sense of the one who uses the intellect, not the intellect itself, which Plotinus calls dianoia. Anyway, it's called sakshi in Sanskrit, like the witness. Um, but it's more like a witness plus kind of an immediate intuitional grasp of like what you're observing. Like there's just this immediate knowingness of like what's in front of you without thinking about it. That itself dissolves, and then you have what remains over, which is, there's many terms for it in different cultures. Like the ancient Greeks may call it the agathon, or they may call it panas, which means the one. In the East, they may call it Brahman, or the Tao. This macrocosmic mind that's the sole substratum and basis of this world. And so this is the devotion-based approach to enlightenment, to anamnesis or bodhi. And then I guess what that would culminate in is the third topic I wanted to talk about. But I mean, like, if you have any questions about that,